Hello, guys, gals, and other pals. My name is Leona DX, and welcome back to another episode of the Battle Lounge. Today, I have a bit of a decisive topic to talk about, but I think it's very important. So, I am here to kind of shed some light on what I think are some different things that make fighting games accessible to the wider player base, to casual players, to people who have never played a fighting game, and why those things are so important. I know from I'm just going to say it, a lot of boomers, a lot of what I say is going to ruffle some feathers, but I don't care. These things are very important and I would like to talk about it. So, I would like to start at a place that I think is probably the most important thing for a lot of games nowadays, and that is price and the point of entry. Now, I think this is the topic that hits closest to home for me, and probably for many other players that look at fighting games and think, wow, this would be really cool. Unfortunately, I don't have $60 and an additional $50 to get all the other characters to play the game, so I'm just not going to buy it. I am very grateful that I am currently in a position of privilege where I have a PC that is powerful enough to run a lot of fighting games because I have access to Steam and all of their really huge sales. Like, I would not have purchased Tekken 7 or Street Fighter V Champion Edition, or Skullgirls, or even Guilty Gear Strive for that matter, without having this thing. And with Strive being the outlier, I didn't pay more than $10 for any of those games. I think that's really important. Accessibility doesn't just mean, having a really good tutorial system, having a really good training mode, having a lot of outside assets like creators doing tutorials, doing guides, controllers, and everything like that. Price is a huge barrier for a lot of these games, which is another reason why I think myself and a lot of other people I've seen say this a lot think that free-to-play is the way to go for fighting games, which I agree with. I've been a free-to-play player for most games like Hearthstone, League of Legends, Legends of Runeterra, all of these things, because I grew up incredibly poor and I didn't have access to all the big AAA releases that were coming out when I was growing up as even a kid or a teenager. So having a lot of free-to-play games such as, and these are bad examples because they did fall apart, but Multiverses was really popular for a while. It unfortunately got shut down, and I don't think that's its problem. I think that's like a WB problem. And then also, and this one I missed the boat on completely, which broke my heart because it looked so cool that I wanted to try it. But Rumbleverse. Rumbleverse looked really cool, super fun. There was a lot of cool things that you can do. I love battle royales personally, and having like fighting game mechanics in one of those looked super sick. And it's unfortunate that that one also got the plug pulled on it because those games were free to play. You could just jump in and do whatever. I think Rumbleverse and Multiverses both had they had other ways to sustain them, like, cosmetics and whatnot. But I think that's really important that you could just download the game because it was free, jump in and play it. It didn't matter. Like, there was no price barrier there, and that is huge. I think that's one of the reasons why Multiverses did so well right out the gate. And again, price being this huge barrier to a lot of these games. I would not have played Tekken 7 if it was any more than what I paid for it, which was like $6. I would not have played Street Fighter V Champion Edition had it not been on sale for like $10 and I just picked it up on a whim. Because I don't have, not just me, many players don't have $60 or $70 or $100 lying around to get a game with all the characters that they would want to play. We just don't. That's not reasonable. So I think that's one bit of accessibility that could be fixed. I personally don't have a good idea for how to fix it. Multiverses tried to go the League of Legends route, where they just drop the game. The characters are free. I think you probably had to work a little bit for it, and then you had to buy cosmetics, and that was how the game sustained itself. Same thing with Rumbleverse. It was basically just Fortnite, except you punched people instead of shot people. And I don't think there's really a better way to go about it, unfortunately. I don't have answers for a lot of these problems. I just know that a lot of people resonate with the stuff that I'm going to talk about, and I kind of want to shine a light on a lot of these things and show people that, yeah, you're not alone in thinking that, oh, fighting games are too hard to get into because of X or Y, and that is totally reasonable. I still would love for people to give them a shot, but I think we have a lot of problems that we need to fix. So let's jump into the next one. This is not really a problem per se, but because we're getting so much better about it. But controllers are huge for fighting games. When I picked up Strive in October of last year, I started on a Xbox One controller that I had lying around. I started playing pad. I played it for about a month, had a great time, but realized that my thumbs were basically on fire every time I finished with a longer session. So Black Friday rolls around, and I pick up a Kanba arcade stick. And I've used that thing since. I have not picked up a controller for the game since, because I love this thing, and my hands don't hurt anymore now that I'm using it. Sure, things are a bit different. It took a little bit of time getting used to it, which is going to happen for any controller. And the Kanba is aside from pad, or if you play on keyboard, these things are not cheap. Even controllers aren't cheap. Controllers nowadays cost the same as a game. So unfortunately, this is a problem that I don't think can fix, just because how else are you supposed to play the game? But I think we can add more ways to play the game, like Hitbox did. Hitbox, I think, is a genius idea. Not having to have a joystick, but adding or replacing the joystick with 4 directional buttons is a genius idea. I love it to bits, even though I hate playing on it because it turns my hand into a pretzel. My hand cramps so bad when I tried playing on Hitbox. But that's okay. I have my arcade stick. I am perfectly content with my arcade stick. You don't have to play on whatever one person thinks is the best thing. Play on the thing that you want to and enjoy the game. That is what is most important, is your enjoyment of the thing. And having access to multiple routes to that, be it a pad, and there are so many controllers and game pads that you could choose from nowadays. The list feels endless. They make pads specifically for fighting games. They make super big controllers for the consoles, like PS5 and the Xbox Series X. They make bigger controllers with more buttons, easier access, all kinds of that stuff. So you can do basically anything with pad. Stick I enjoy because, for starters, it just feels natural to me to play on an arcade stick. I know it sounds weird coming from somebody who started on pad, but as soon as I picked it up and really got used to it, I was like, oh, this is why a lot of these games are designed with arcade stick first and controller second, because it just feels natural. It felt natural to me to play on arcade stick. And arcade sticks are cool. There's so many ways that you can build them. There are already so many different variations, sizes, shapes, button layouts. You can do basically anything with an arcade stick as long as you have a little bit of know-how and the resources to build it. And I think that is great. Same thing with Hitbox. A friend of mine would probably not be playing the game, any of the games that it plays, if it had not built a Hitbox. And even though it's not my thing, do I care that it's the most optimal controller? No, I don't give a damn. You can play on whatever you want. Doing things the most optimally does not matter to 99% of the player base. It just doesn't. And that is okay. And besides, a bunch of Street Fighter V pros, I think it was Mena RD, play on pad. They don't play on stick or even Hitbox. They play on pad. And Mena, I think, got second at the last Capcom Cup. If that doesn't prove to you that you can play on whatever you want, I don't know what does. So just pick the thing that you want, as long as it's within reason. Don't go out of your way to buy an arcade stick if you can't afford to, because it's not worth it. Do it if it makes you feel comfortable playing the game that you want to play. That is what is most important. Now, I touched on this a bit earlier, but I will say another axis that we have for having accessibility within the community is all of the videos, all of the websites, all of the tutorials, etc., that are put out by everyone. If I want to look up combos or frame data or anything like that for an ArcSys game, I just type in dustloop.com and it's all right there. It's great. There are so many guides for doing combos, tutorials on how to play neutral with certain characters or even certain games, tutorials on how to tech throws even. I watched I think it was like a 30-minute video on Baiken's parry by Lord Knight. Like 30 minutes on a single move. Like you can find so much. It's just a vast ocean of videos and guides and websites that want to give you information that you're looking for. Now, while it's a lot to parse sometimes, I'm still having trouble remembering all of Baiken's combos. It's all there. It is there whenever I need it. And I could go to Dustloop right now and look up the weird frame data for Anji's like target string attacks. I could go and find what the frame data is on the low or the high and learn how to fight against it just by doing that. And these things are constantly getting updated. There's so much work put into all of these things. They get updated with every patch, every release. It might take a day or two just because they have to dig up all of that information. But it will be there. You can know that it will be there. Fighting game glossary helps you look up what terms mean. Now, a lot of those are kind of wishy-washy depending on what you're looking at, but they are there for you to access whenever you need to. Now, some of those things that I just mentioned should be in the actual games, and that's what's next. Street Fighter 6, from what we've seen so far, is doing a really good job of giving us access to information. They have frame data and hitboxes in the training mode, and you can see it in real time as you are practicing what your move is. So like you can look and see if it's plus or minus on block. You can see how long the startup time is. You will have it in the game. It will be right in front of you. You don't have to go to a website. You don't have to do anything. That should be in every fighting game from now on. If it is not in your fighting game, you have done something wrong when creating it. Not to mention, there are also combo tutorials. Having combo tutorials in Strive helped me a lot because I had no idea what I was supposed to be doing at the start until I saw the combo mode and started looking at some of these things. I was like, oh, some of these things are interesting. I wonder if there's more out there. And that's how I found Dustloop. Having a combo mode in the game that shows you how you are supposed to do a combo helps so much. I can't overstate how much having these tools in the actual program that you are trying to play helps you get better at the game and learn what you are supposed to be doing. That's all that most of us want, is to know what we are supposed to be doing. I was very frustrated with the Street Fighter 6 beta this weekend. I was having a great time until I kept running into players who managed to do like full, I don't know if they were optimal or not, the game's not even out yet, but they were doing full combos that were taking away half of my health. Meanwhile, I had spent maybe a minute in training mode because there's no actual access to the training mode in the beta, because you have to wait at a cabinet, and as soon as somebody shows up, you're booted from training mode and into a match. I could not sit there and figure out what my special moves were. I couldn't figure out what my super moves were. I couldn't figure out anything. And that was the most frustrating time I think I've had with a fighting game, is just knowing that I know where I'm supposed to be looking for a thing. I know how to get there, but it won't let me do it. I know that that is going to be completely irrelevant here in a week and a half, or a week at the time of this video's release, but I can't overstate that I was livid. I was having such a bad time on the last night of the beta just because I was running into people that were mopping the floor with me because I didn't know what any of my moves did. And not only did I not know, I wasn't allowed to figure out what they were either. It's not even that I didn't know, it's that I wasn't allowed to know. And that was so frustrating. And I'm sure that that is an experience a lot of people have. And finally, and here's the feather ruffling part, speaking of frustrating, I would like to talk about players and the community at large and how they try to keep people from getting into the game. Now, you might be thinking, Leona, what are you talking about? There are so many people out here praising the ways that people are like, yes, please, come join us. We'll talk to you. I'll tell you about this 30-hit combo that you can do with Soul and how you can kill from full health from half screen. I would be more than happy to give that information to you. That's not exactly what I'm talking about. Those people certainly exist. I see them everywhere. That's not exactly what I'm here for. I'm mostly talking about, well, I'll just say it, boomers who think that things should be hard because they were hard for them. I hate to break it to you, but we are in the year of our Lord 2023, not 1993. We have access to the entire planet in a little electronic brick that sits in my front right pocket. I can play Street Fighter 3 Third Strike on my computer. A game that could not run on the leading console when it released, which was at the time, I believe, the PlayStation 1. When the first iteration released anyway. It could not run on that because Elena's idle animation had too many frames in it. A lot of these same old players say that things like hitbox is cheating. If you're not doing things the old way, it's wrong and you should feel bad about it. Like, okay, Grandpa, go play Street Fighter 1. Leave us alone. We're here to have a good time. We don't need you here. If your only purpose in the FGC is to prevent players from playing the games and having fun because you feel like being an old dusty asshole, then we do not need you here. Period. Now, this doesn't just apply to old people in the community, I'm fully aware, but for the younger players, I don't think it's necessarily that kind of an issue where they think that playing on certain controllers or in certain ways on certain devices is cheating and you're doing it wrong. No, these players have a different kind of effect on the outer sphere of the community, but especially on the inner sphere of the community. So everybody knows this one. The people who are like, oh, the game that you're playing is dog shit. You should come play my game instead. My game is great. That does not help anyone. You are not doing anything but hurting your chances of getting people to play games with you. If somebody new shows up and says, hey, Tekken 7 looks really dope. I want to give that a shot. Does anybody want to come play with me? And I walk up to them and say, Tekken 7 is dog shit. You should come play Guilty Gear Strive instead. That player is going to play neither of those games and they're going to go back to playing Fortnite. That player will turn around, go play literally anything else, and never look back. And that is on you. If you are going to be an obnoxious dick about why your game is better than everything else, nobody is going to want to play with you. It does not matter how good your game actually is. And things don't just stop there. Surprisingly, the FGC has been very accepting of queer people, which surprised me, considering all of the other games that I've ever played. However, that does not mean that there is not still bigotry in the community. That also limits accessibility. If I have to worry about somebody being homophobic or transphobic whenever I want to go to locals, then I'm just not going to go to locals. I'm going to stop playing the game and I'm going to go get on with my life. I play these games for fun. Yes, I also play them for competition, but I find competition fun. I am not going to an event to get called slurs and then walk out of there when I'm 0-2. And while I am very much not the voice that should be expanding on this topic specifically, I know a lot of people that I have seen firsthand and also offhand that have experienced pretty real racism in the community, and that also does not help anyone's case. Thankfully, this issue is extremely easy to solve. The way that we solve it is by preventing these pieces of shit from even being in the community in the first place. If you see somebody being any kind of hateful, you tell them to get the hell out because they are not welcome here. End of discussion. There is no point in arguing with a bigot. You throw them the hell out and we move on, because the FGC should be a place that welcomes everyone who's not a total piece of shit. On a little bit of a less serious note, something else that prevents people from getting into the community is the way that players talk about their own ways of playing, their own characters, etc., etc. I have straight up just not talked to people who are like, yeah, I'm playing this character's dog shit, I lose all the time because of this character. Like, I don't want to talk to that person because they have nothing constructive to say, and they are very likely, especially, not somebody who is going to be fun to be around. Same thing with people who just downplay current games. Current games are the easiest for people to access. They generally have the highest player bases and are continuing to get support from their developers. Now, this isn't necessarily always the case. I know that for things like Skullgirls, which came out in 2013, it's still getting support, but it is kind of an old game. You will still find people playing that. Same thing with Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. There's a ton of people that still play that. It's one of the most important games in the series, and a lot of people still have a big fondness for it. I would like to give it a try myself one day. I still haven't been able to play it yet, but I would love to give Street Fighter 3 Third Strike a try. People who downplay games don't help cases for getting new players into the games and keeping new players playing them. Even keeping enfranchised players playing them. I think I saw it was Cloud805, I think that's their name, who is an EVO champion for certain games. I don't know which ones, but I saw this conversation happening. They were having a hard time with the Street Fighter 6 beta because learning a new game is just hard. It's not even knowing just what your moves do. It's learning how to adjust your spacing and your neutral from one game to another. Relearning new mechanics that you've never seen before. And everyone in the replies was like, oh, play on an arcade stick. A lot of people in these replies are just not giving any helpful advice. This is a player going through new game salt and just wanted to vent, which is understandable. Like, learning these new things is extremely difficult. Learning any new game is going to be hard, even if it's within the same genre of game that you've been playing. Going from Strive to Street Fighter V was such a weird experience for me. Learning that you had 6 buttons for attacks instead of 4, and that throw was used with both light attacks, and that certain other things were used with both medium attacks and both heavy attacks, and that you can't block while jumping. Learning all of these things is not easy. None of this stuff is easy. And then just walking in and saying, oh yeah, you should just play on an arcade stick. You should do this. You should do that. That doesn't help anyone. You are not helping anyone when you give somebody who is an Evo champion venting their frustrations about learning how to play a new game, giving them advice that means basically nothing. And on that note, I think that just about covers it. I know that this one's going to be a little bit longer than the other ones, but I had a lot more to say about this because accessibility for anything is the most important aspect of a thing. Growing up poor and with not a lot of friends, especially not around me where I lived, I had to learn a lot of things by myself. I didn't have access to the internet until I was, I think, 14. There was no way in hell that I was ever going to play a fighting game, casually or otherwise, when I was that young and had no access to any information whatsoever. I would have been getting my ass beat over and over and over again. I would have not have been having any fun because I would not have understood what was going on. That has changed since then. Tools have evolved. Times have changed. Access to information is limitless. And I'm hoping, mind you, that things are only going to get better from here. If Street Fighter 6 and everything that it has shown is anything to go off of, we have an incredibly bright future ahead of us for fighting games and games as a whole. If creators continue to do what they are doing, giving people access to information, if developers continue to do what they are doing, and giving us tools in the game to see what's going on, and also making the barrier to entry, such as with things like price and availability on devices, if those continue to get better, there is going to be no stopping the next wave of fighting game players. They're going to be absolute monsters here in the next couple of years, and I am very excited to see what actually happens. Anyway, my name has been Leona DX. Thank you so much for listening, and please enjoy the rest of your stay.